Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our special live Q&A. We're so excited to be here tonight with you, and we're so excited that you're able to attend this special edition of a live Q&A with Learn. So if you're here tonight, it's probably because you've been following us the last month with our little sleepy time bedtime webinar series with Dr. Pamela Mitelman. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you our co-host, Catherine Demas, who is our project coordinator for the Provincial Resource Team at Learn, and our guest tonight, Dr. Pamela Mitelman, she's a clinical psychologist at the Kids Sleep Clinic. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Carolina. So just to situate us, the Goodnight Bag is a really great resource that we developed at Learn for families with children 3 to 5 years old who are entering kindergarten or preschool. And our goal is really to equip families with the tools they need for a successful transition to school. And part of it is helping our little ones to get a good night's rest. So we have Dr. Pamela Mitelman. Welcome. We are so thrilled to have you here live. So many people may have already seen the series that you recorded for us on the Goodnight Bag website. And if you haven't, we're going to share that link at the end. We got some good questions from parents that were submitted in advance, but we're going to start with a really simple one, which is, Dr. Mitelman, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you for having me here. And thank you to all of you guys for caring about your children's sleep, which is really my passion. My passion is to educate families and our community about healthy sleep habits and the value and the impact that it has on kids and the families. So as mentioned, I'm a clinical psychologist and I specialize in pediatric sleep. I run the Kids Sleep Clinic where we treat families and children ages 0 through 18, all in regards to sleep difficulties. We, as a psychological practice, we focus on the family unit as a whole and the wellness and well-being of everyone in the family as it pertains to their child's sleep. So that's really our angle and our standpoint.
That's wonderful. We do appreciate the family approach. So let's begin by understanding this concept that you've shared about restorative sleep. So what exactly is restorative sleep and why is it so important?
Yeah, restorative sleep really refers to when the body gets the amount of sleep that it needs in order to support the functions that the body needs to do. So restorative sleep, what occurs during restorative sleep is children grow physically. All the learning that they are exposed to during the day becomes consolidated, particularly in the deep phase of sleep. So learning and memory and restorative sleep really supports that. I could speak on and on to the benefits of restorative and healthy sleep. To name a few, in addition to those two that I just named, there's also all the ingredients that support academic success as children move forward into the school age years. And then there's all the ingredients, or a lot of the ingredients that support emotional success. And that's really relevant to like those preschool age children, right? Playing with their figuring out their peers and figuring out how to share and how to limit set and follow limits and control their impulses and control their really big feelings and all those things. All of those are really, really supported by a healthy night's sleep.
That's great. So we're going to ask some questions about how to get that healthy night's sleep. So one of the things that comes up, one of the questions that came up again and again in different ways was about, is it normal for children to wake up during the night, multiple times in the night? And there's follow-up questions to that about all the different things that they do when they wake up. But just about waking up, is that normal? How can we get the children to sleep through the night? Is that what we need to do?
It's funny to me that you asked that now, because I have been practicing exclusively in the world of sleep for 7 years now. Prior to that, I was working as a psychologist, but I've really just niched myself in sleep for the past 7 years. And this morning, a client of mine said to me, my sister says that children should not wake in the night. Is that true? And I actually found myself stumped on how to answer that. There were so many parts of that statement that I felt needed to be addressed, but I found myself stumped. So one thing that didn't sit well with me with that statement was the word should. I never say should with my families that I work with. I just, I just don't. So is it normal or is it typical for children to wake in the night? I guess the answer is both yes and no. And that's probably why I was stumped. Is it common? Exceptionally common. When I work with children who are of the age to communicate with me, so typically 6, 7 years old, starting at age 6, 7, I always tell them, close your eyes and imagine 10 friends. 8 or 9 of those friends likely have some sort of sleep challenge. So it is so common, and it's accepted and tolerated. Certainly the occasional nightmare, or the occasional, I need a glass of water, or my tummy hurts, or, of course those things are quote unquote normal, but should a preschool age child, or is it healthy or necessary for a school age child to wake or a preschool age child to wake in the night? The answer is no. It's not.
Okay, so we have a specific example here that a question came in from one of our viewers, from Nikki. She says, my son falls asleep easily enough, but about 2 to 4 times a night, he will wake up and get up and run into my bed. I make sure not to let him into my bed the first 2 times, bring him back to his bed by 3 a.m. I'm exhausted, and I just let him into my bed because I need to sleep. I need some ideas to get him to stay in his bed and fall back asleep by himself. I am so tired.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I really empathize with that, and I could really understand the challenge that comes with that. The first thing, and if anybody has heard me talk before, you probably have heard me say it starts with bedtime. It really, in this example, if your child is falling asleep within 2 minutes, but you are present at bedtime, then he's going to wake in the night looking for you. So the work really starts at bedtime. One, it just in terms of the evolution and the progression of sleep, it makes sense. 2, in terms of the child's availability to learn, it makes sense. And 3, in terms of the parent's ability to implement it, it makes sense to begin there.
So what are some of the tips or strategies that parents who have this issue can use? So you mentioned starting at bedtime. What could that look like?
So I would not even deal with the middle of the night wakings until I have addressed independent sleep at bedtime. So I would encourage, if somebody were coming to see me in my clinic, I would encourage my patient to put everything aside and just survive in the middle of the night. Really just do what you have to do for self-preservation for you and your child in the middle of the night, but really create the habits that you intend to create at bedtime. So what that looks like is independent sleep, meaning that the child is falling asleep in the exact same conditions that you intend for them to replicate throughout the night. So what that means is that if there's music at bedtime, well, then that music needs to be there in the middle of the night. If there's light, well, then that light needs to be there in the middle of the night. And really the environment and the conditions need to be the same. And the biggest, most significant one is obviously parental presence. So if a parent is present at bedtime, we could be sure that that the child will be looking for that parent to be present in the middle of the night. If the parent intends not to be there in the middle of the night, then they need to figure out strategy that's going to work for them to be able to remove themselves at bedtime. And I work a lot with families on figuring out what that strategy looks like for the unique family.
Okay. So we had a question come up around a child who's afraid of the dark. So the parent says, I have my child who's afraid of the dark. It's a struggle to get them to sleep. If they wake up, same thing, there's still a struggle. Do you have any tips for parents who are dealing with this?
Sure. Normalize, first of all. Let's normalize that for a child. So I know that you're afraid of the dark, sweetie. It's okay. You know what? When Mommy was a little girl, Mommy was also afraid of the dark. And you know what Mommy did? Mommy used to sit with Grandma, and Grandma would whatever. So just in that one sentence, what have we done? We've normalized it. We've empathized with them. We've told the child, we hear you, we understand, you're not alone. And then we've also modeled by saying, look, your big, strong parent who's not afraid of anything was also scared. We've also modeled to lean on a parent, right? What I used to do, Grandma used to whatever, right? So it sort of reinforces this kind of unity and leaning and supporting on the parent, which is really healthy in that relationship. And then and Grandma used to whatever, and that whatever could be a really effective tool. Grandma used to tell me to smell the flowers and blow out the birthday candles. Let's try. And typically I'll do that, or I'll ask the parent to do that 3 times. 3 good breaths with the child is always calming. So just in that one sentence we gave, we gave some powerful information. A night light, 3 to 5-year-olds, most of them like a night light, and most of them are very particular about how they want the door. Either they want the door closed tight to keep them on, to keep the monsters out, or they want the door open so they have full access to the rest of the home. But most kids at that age are very particular about how they want the door. And if there's no reason in the home environment not to give them full sort of control over that, then I say do it.
Okay, so there is some room for negotiation.
Definitely. There's always, if we don't negotiate with a 3-4-year-old, we're dead in the water. It has to be a give and take.
Okay, great. So children at this age, there are preschoolers, they're getting ready for that transition to kindergarten. We know there's a lot of kids going into 4-year-old kindergarten this year. So how can parents help to transition that sleep bedtime routine, maybe if they need to change the hour to correspond to when the child needs to wake up? So maybe I'll backtrack on that and say, how many hours does a child need to sleep? And then how do parents go about figuring out how to get that amount of sleep for the child?
Yeah, it's a great
change
question.
up the routine.
So firstly, 4-year-olds in daycare, or, in like a preschool setting, more often than not are napping. This is a thorn in my practice. To be honest, it is really not in the best interest of the child. If any of you parents are struggling with this issue, and this is solely your issue, and you need support in this area, I have plenty of resources, and I am really happy to, extend that. To share that. That's no problem at all. The research really supports the idea that after the age of 3, the benefits of restorative sleep that we spoke about in the beginning come from nighttime sleep. So all the learning and the growing and all those, supportant functions of sleep really come from nighttime sleep. So if daytime sleep is limiting the quantity or the quality of nighttime sleep, then after the age of 3, daytime sleep should go. What happens, so that's sort of what the research shows, but that's what the clinicians know, that's really the ideal. In reality, the practice, what I deal with day in and day out, is that we're living in the time of COVID where there's not much flexibility, right? Daycare providers need a break in the day. poor information, misinformation, and just basically we end up napping our 5-year-olds. And then the parents are the ones dealing with it, and the children can't fall asleep till late at night. So in order to transition children to school, to school, more of a school schedule, one, I would say check if they're napping. If they're napping at school because they have to, please don't go and put them to bed at 7 o'clock at night because you think that that's in their best interest to support a full night's sleep. It's only going to backfire. Start off by putting them to sleep closer to the time, to bed, closer to the time that they're actually falling asleep, and then work backwards. At 4 or 5 years old, children need 11 to 12 hours of nighttime sleep. Mm-hmm. Period.
Great, thank you. So factor in that nap. And speaking about bedtime times, we have a question from Emma who asks, how consistent should we be with bedtimes? My child seems ready for bed anytime between 6:30 and 7:30. Is it okay if I change it up?
If you are not trying to correct a sleep problem, absolutely. It depends. It depends on the age and how finicky they are around sleep. If you were seeing me in my clinic and we were treating a sleep difficulty, I would tell you to keep that window smaller. If I were talking to a friend who I know their child doesn't have any sleep difficulties and they said, yeah, they were really tired last night, I put them to bed at 6:30, but their usual bedtime is 7, occasionally we go at 7:30, I would say no problem. So it really depends.
Okay, so in your video series, you talk about how it's really important to follow certain steps when we talk about bedtime routine. So what's more important? Is it the time the child goes to sleep, or is it the routine? And I'm asking this because one of the questions that we received from a parent is, when the child is with me, everything is good. She has her routine. When she goes to her grandparents' house, she goes to bed anytime, or she goes to bed a little bit later because the grandparents want to spend time with her. So is it really important to follow that time? And how do we help them adjust if there's nothing we can do about it?
I think for a 10-year-old, the timing is probably more relevant than the routine. I think for the kids, and I say 10-year-old because they're just older and they sleep more like we do, right, as adults. I think for a 3 to 5-year-old, where being able to master their environment and needing to control their environment, and where they're really sort of in that like resisting, battling phase, I think the routine is so important. If most kindergarten classrooms or preschool settings will have almost like a chart, like an activity chart for the kids of like what to do and the sequence and the order of events. And that's because kids this age need predictability so badly. They need to know, I got this. It's for the same reason that, they like to read the same book 100 times, where we as parents are like, oh my God, this book again? They know the ending. And that really provides them with a source of confidence and a sense of accomplishment. And I think it's the same thing for the routine. So it's not that the routine is more important than the time of bed, because I think both are equally important. But if I had to pick a battle for the 3 to 5-year-olds, I would probably say if I don't stick to those steps, they're probably going to stick me to the steps. Like they're probably going to force me, no, wait a minute, now it's time to shut the lights, but I didn't X, Y, and Z.
Okay, that's great. So it's lovely to hear that children will also get so into the routine, so then it becomes less of a battle and more of just a regular routine, which is something that we hear a lot about. I'm happy to hear that.
It provides them with that sense of accomplishment. They know exactly what to expect between such and such hour and such hour. Maybe it's a struggle to get there, but once you get there, it's worth every bit of it.
So is that also one of those strategies if ever you need to shift the start time? So we talked a little bit about that transition to school and how, after the summer, parents are going to have to get their children ready for that earlier start time. So is that one of the supportive strategies to when you need to switch that bedtime?
Yeah, you just start the routine a little bit earlier. Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we do have a follow-up question from one of our parents, and she asks, if the child is used to falling asleep with a story or a sound box, do you suggest that it gets cut before bed if we're not going to keep it on the rest of the night?
So I very much take the approach that it's not a problem unless it's a problem. So if your child is falling asleep to a story and it's working for you and it's really enjoyable and a beautiful time in the night and they sleep through the night and everybody goes about their day, then wonderful, don't change it. Same thing with the sound box. If they're falling asleep with a sound box and it turns off or you turn it on off and they sleep through the night, well, then let's not fix it, right? If it's not broken. But if they're falling asleep to a story and you're repeating the same story over and over and over until you're absolutely sure they're sleeping and you sort of feel like you're held hostage to staying there reading that story until they fall asleep, only for them to wake 2 hours later, then yes, let's get rid of that. And the same thing with the sound box.
Okay, so we have another question from Vishal, and they ask, I have a 15-month-old daughter, and she sleeps only after breastfeeding by her mom. How can we break this pattern and make her sleep without milk? She does not go to sleep without her mom.
And at 15 months, that's hard. You need a system in place before you go and just do it, because a 15-month-old isn't a 6-month-old, right? A 15-month-old has 15 months of knowing what it is to expect from you, and probably a good year of knowing how to get what they want from you, right? so the relationship has been formed, and the concept and the understanding of like that reaction and that reciprocal interaction between themselves and their mother is already at play. So it can't just be, it would be ridiculous for me to say, oh, just stop, because I know that that would backfire. So I think that it needs some consideration and it needs a plan. What a place to start might be, rather than nursing immediately before bed, just put a little bit of space in between the full feed and then bed. And then I guess it becomes, is it simply nursing to induce sleepiness, or is there some food benefit to it? Right? We have to see what the benefits are to know how to eliminate it. So it's a little bit more complicated than I could just answer quickly and easily now.
Okay, great. We also have some parents sharing tips in the chat, which I really love. So just for anyone watching, we have just about 5 minutes left on this live Q&A. So if you have any other questions, try to get them in as soon as possible. So we do have another question about co-sleeping. So we actually had 2 parents email us with this question, and they say, we have been co-sleeping with our child and want to transition them to sleeping in their own room. Can you offer some tips to get us started in the right direction?
Absolutely. My tips would vary depending on the age of the child. So I'm going to assume that it's 3 to 5 year olds,
Yes.
right? Okay. Set up the room, set up the bed, and the day that you start is you start with the intention to succeed. So sometimes parents are like, well, I'm just going to try it. And then, there's the option to sort of rescue the situation by bringing them back to their own bed. It doesn't have to be a harsh, tough love type of approach. That's not what I'm suggesting. But whatever approach you're going to take, follow through until you actually see it through. I think that's really important. I also think that sometimes like parents feel anxious about it and accidentally they put that anxiety on the child. Okay, 90 more days till you're going to sleep in your own bed. 80 more days. Kids don't need that. Kids almost need like, this is what we're doing. It's okay. I got it under control. We chose the bed. The bed's going in, and this is when you're going to sleep in it, type of thing, as opposed to like sort of building this anxiety. Kids really benefit when we make changes and we present the changes to them. They really benefit to know that we've got it under control. I know this is scary for you. I know this is a big change, but we are going to have so much fun. Like, they almost need it presented in that way. And then the next morning, whether it's a complete success or it's not, we reward the action that we're asking for. And the action that we're asking for is you sleep in your bed. If it means the parents have to sleep there, if it means they're up the whole night, it doesn't matter. The intention is that they are in their bedroom. And if they succeed at that, then we reward that.
Great, thank you. I realize it's a much larger question, and that people can obviously reach out to you if they do have any questions specifically on that. So we have we've got a few more comments that came in and some questions. So we're going to try to do this rapid fire. One of them is just a comment from Emma who says, I used to read my toddler the same exact story before bed every night until she let me know very clearly that she was done with it. So children
That's
do
great.
have, yeah. We also have another question. Is it a good idea to change the bedtime for summer? Can I put the children to bed later so we can stay out later, even if they wake up at the same time in the morning? Like, how flexible can we be with that?
If it works, then why not? If it doesn't work, at some point, at some point, a 4-year-old is going to get overtired very quickly. If they're napping, and they're at the age where, where they shouldn't be, or where their body no longer needs to nap, take advantage. Absolutely. Right? If daycare is forcing a nap during the day and you are loving these 7:45, 8 p.m. strolls, well, then so be it. Get them in bed at 8:30 and everybody's happy.
Okay, great. So I think we have time for one more question. Emma asks, if your child wakes up calmly in the morning, how long can you or should you leave them? My daughter is 2 and I go to her after maximum 30 minutes. My husband thinks it's okay to leave her longer, but sometimes she falls back asleep and I worry it could mess up her sleep for the rest of the day.
If she's happy playing, and it benefits you because you get more sleep, then why not? Typically after 30 minutes, they're no longer happy to be awake and play by themselves if they're ready to start their day. If she falls back to sleep, I would more often than not, the odd time, okay, we can just, kind of chalk it up to she was tired that day. But if it's happening on a regular basis that she's waking too early and falling back to sleep, her sleep schedule is probably misaligned for her.
Okay. So the final question, which I think is a great question from Vishal, is when are these sessions planned? I'm attending for the first time. I want to join this regularly. Thanks. Thank you so much for that comment. So we will be sharing the link to the series that Dr. Pamela has prepared for us. You can access these on the Goodnight Bag webpage. It's scrolling on the little scroller below. So please feel free to access those. We also have some checklists for you and free resources. So thank you very much, Dr. Pamela Mitelman.
You're so welcome.
A pleasure having you here. Carolina, take us home.
Thank you so much. Oh boy, this was a great session. I think we got some really great questions. Thank you for replying to all the questions, Dr. Mitelman, and thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. We've dropped a couple of links during the live Q&A. You'll have a link to the actual resources, and you actually have a link to the webinar series that we shared during the month of April. But please come by and tune in and continue our journey and our story with the Goodnight Bag, because we have some more interesting series to share with you in the upcoming weeks and months. Thank you, everybody. Wish you a very nice evening. Actually, maybe if you want, you could just also sign up to our newsletter on our Learn Quebec website and stay tuned with all the new resources, events, and lives like this. So, Vishal, maybe you want to sign up to our newsletter to be informed with what's coming up with our with Learn. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night. Sweet
Thank you,
dreams.
guys. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Bye.
Bye.